It was a busy evening at La Bella Dine, a small but popular restaurant in the middle of the city. Waiters rushed around, taking orders and serving food. The smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread filled the air. Among the workers was a shy young waitress named Anna. She was quiet, polite, and always careful not to make mistakes. Everyone thought she was sweet, but her manager, Mr. Collins, seemed to dislike her for no reason. Mr. Collins was tall, proud, and mean. He shouted at the staff almost every day. He liked to feel powerful, and he often picked on Anna because she never talked back. She was new at the restaurant and didn't know how to defend herself. Whenever he scolded her, she just bowed her head and said, "I'm sorry, sir." That only made him more annoyed. That night, a group of businessmen came in for dinner. They looked serious and rich. One man sat at the far corner table, dressed in a dark suit. He didn't talk much, but everyone seemed to respect him. His name was Marco d'Angelo, though no one in the restaurant knew that he was one of the most feared Mafia bosses in the city. He ate quietly, his eyes calm but watchful. Anna was assigned to serve Marco's table. She walked carefully, holding the tray with both hands so she wouldn't spill anything. When she poured his wine, her hands trembled a little. "Thank you," Marco said in a calm, deep voice. Anna nodded quickly and walked away. For the first time that day, someone had spoken kindly to her. She smiled a little without knowing that her smile had caught Mr. Collins's eye. From behind the counter, Mr. Collins glared at her. He didn't like how the important-looking man had spoken to Anna. In his mind, she didn't deserve any attention. Anger grew inside him, and his jealousy made him act without thinking. When Anna went to the back to clean, he followed her quietly. No one noticed. Everyone was busy with customers. "Think you're special because a rich man smiled at you," Mr. Collins said harshly as he grabbed Anna's arm. She shook her head quickly, scared. "No, sir. I didn't do anything," she said softly, but he pulled her harder. "We'll talk about this in private," he said angrily and dragged her toward the staff bathroom. Anna tried to free herself, but his grip was too strong. Inside the bathroom, Mr. Collins shut the door and locked it. "You better learn how to behave," he said in a cold voice. Anna began to cry. Before she could speak again, a deep voice came from behind them. "Is there a problem here?" it said. Mr. Collins turned quickly. Standing near the sink was Marco d'Angelo. He had been there the whole time, washing his hands quietly. His sharp eyes stared at Mr. Collins, and the room went silent. Marco slowly dried his hands and said, "I don't like seeing a man touch a woman without her consent." Anna's tears stopped for a moment. She looked at Marco, not sure what would happen next. But one thing was clear. Her nightmare had just met someone even scarier than her manager. Mr. Collins froze where he stood. His face turned pale, and his hands slowly dropped from Anna's arm. He didn't know what to say or do. The man standing before him looked calm, but there was something dangerous in his eyes. "I was just talking to my staff," Mr. Collins stammered. Marco didn't move. He just looked at him quietly, wiping his hands with a paper towel. "It didn't look like talking," he said in a low voice that made the room feel smaller. Anna stood close to the wall, shaking. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt a strange kind of safety near the quiet man. Marco turned to her gently and said, "Go outside, miss." His voice was firm but kind. Anna hesitated. "It's okay," he said again, and she nodded before slipping out the door. When she stepped into the hallway, two tall men in dark suits were standing there, Marco's bodyguards. They saw the tears on her face and nodded without asking questions. Back inside, Mr. Collins tried to smile. "Sir, please, you don't understand. She's lazy and disobedient." "I was just trying to correct her." Marco raised an eyebrow. "By dragging her into a bathroom?" He asked quietly. Mr. Collins's mouth opened, but no words came out. Marco stepped closer until their faces were only inches apart. You should be careful how you treat people, he said. Especially when you don't know who's watching. There was a long pause. The sound of the busy restaurant echoed faintly through the closed door. Marco leaned slightly forward and whispered, "Do you like your job here, Mr. Collins?" The manager swallowed hard and nodded quickly. "Then you'll apologize to the girl," Marco said. "And you'll make sure she's treated with respect." Mr. Collins nodded again. Yes, of course," he said, his voice shaking. Marco smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. When Marco opened the bathroom door, his men were still there. Anna stood near the wall, wiping her eyes. Marco gave her a small nod. "You can go back to work," he said softly. "No one will bother you again." She looked up at him, confused but grateful. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. He only nodded and walked back toward the dining area, his guards following behind him. As soon as Marco left, Mr. Collins came out of the bathroom, sweating. His hands shook. The waiters looked at him curiously, but no one asked questions. He called Anna to the corner. "I'm sorry," he said, forcing the words out. His voice was low, and his face was red. Anna didn't say anything. She just nodded and went back to her work. For the first time, Mr. Collins looked afraid of her, or rather, of who was watching her. Later that night, as the restaurant began to close, Anna saw Marco leaving. He stopped near the door, turned slightly, and met her eyes. "Keep your head up," he said simply. Then he walked out into the night, disappearing into a black car that waited outside. Anna didn't know his name, but she would never forget the man who stepped in when she needed it most. The next morning, Anna came to work early. She wanted to stay out of trouble and avoid any more problems with Mr. Collins. The restaurant was quiet, and only a few workers were there. She put on her apron, tied her hair neatly, and began wiping tables. But she could feel that something was different. The kitchen staff kept whispering to each other. When she walked by, they went silent. Everyone looked nervous. Mr. Collins walked in a few minutes later. He looked tired and pale, like he hadn't slept all night. Usually, he barked orders at everyone the moment he entered, but today he was quiet. He didn't shout, didn't complain, and didn't even look at Anna. That was strange. Anna didn't know why, but she felt that it had something to do with the man from last night, the one who had stepped in for her. Around noon, a black car parked outside the restaurant. Everyone stopped what they were doing for a moment and looked. The door opened, and the same quiet man, Marco D'Angelo, stepped out. He was dressed neatly again, wearing a dark suit. His two guards followed him inside. The air changed the moment he entered. Even the customers looked up. Mr. Collins froze near the counter, his hands shaking slightly. Marco walked to his usual corner table. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. His deep voice made people move faster without him asking. Anna quickly brought him water and a menu. "Good afternoon, sir," she said softly. Marco looked at her for a second, noticing the faint bruise on her arm. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Anna nodded. "Yes, sir. Thank you for yesterday." Marco gave a small nod. "You're welcome," he said, and began to look at the menu. Mr. Collins stood near the kitchen door, watching every move. His heart raced. He wanted to stay out of sight, but Marco's voice called out, "Mr. Collins." The manager froze and turned slowly. "Come here," Marco said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Mr. Collins walked over quickly, trying to smile. "Yes, sir," he asked. Marco looked up from the menu. "You remember what I told you last night?" he said. "Yes, sir," Mr. Collins said quickly. "I've been respectful, I promise." Marco nodded slightly. "Good. Keep it that way." Anna stood nearby, pretending to fix something on the next table, but she was listening. She felt nervous, but also safe. For the first time since she started working there, she didn't feel alone. Marco noticed her again and said, "Bring me your best coffee, please." Anna nodded and hurried to the counter. Mr. Collins quickly told the barista, "Make it perfect." No one wanted to make a mistake while that man was there. When Anna brought the coffee, Marco smiled slightly. "You work hard," he said. "Don't let anyone make you feel small." Anna's eyes widened a bit. No one had ever spoken to her that kindly at work. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly. He took a sip of the coffee, then looked around the restaurant. "Nice place," he said, "but it needs better people running it." Mr. Collins swallowed hard. Marco's words sounded simple, but everyone knew what they really meant. The day went on slowly, but everyone in the restaurant stayed alert. Marco D'Angelo's presence made the whole place quiet and careful. Even the cooks in the kitchen spoke in low voices. Mr. Collins moved around trying to look busy, but he was sweating. Every time Marco looked his way, his hands started to shake. Anna could feel the tension, but she kept working, wiping tables and serving meals as if everything was normal. When lunch was over, Marco called Anna back to his table. "Sit for a minute," he said softly. She hesitated. "Sir, I'm not supposed to sit during work hours," she said quickly. Marco smiled a little. "I said sit," he repeated, his tone gentle but firm. She sat down carefully. "Tell me something," he said. "How long have you worked here?" Anna looked down. "Just a few weeks," she said. "And you like it?" he asked. She shrugged. "It's okay, sir. I just need the job. My mother is sick, and I send her money." Marco nodded slowly, thinking. "You have good manners. You respect people." "That's rare," he said. Anna smiled weakly, unsure what to say. He continued, "People like you shouldn't be treated badly. You deserve respect and safety." His words sounded simple, but they carried weight. She looked up at him. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. Marco nodded again and picked up his cup. Mr. Collins, who had been pretending to arrange plates behind the counter, was sweating even more. He didn't like seeing Anna talk to Marco. He didn't trust that man, though he didn't know who he really was. But deep inside, he was terrified. Something about Marco's calmness scared him more than shouting ever could. After a while, Marco stood up and put some money on the table. It was more than enough to pay for his meal. "Keep the change," he said, then looked at Anna. "And make sure no one bothers you again," he added. Mr. Collins nodded quickly. "Yes, sir, of course, sir." Marco didn't even look at him. He simply walked out of the restaurant with his guards following behind him. The place stayed silent until his car drove away. When the door closed, Mr. Collins finally exhaled and wiped his face with a napkin. The other workers whispered to each other. One of them said, "That man. He didn't feel normal," another said. "He looked like someone powerful." Mr. Collins didn't say a word. He went into his office, locked the door, and sat down. He knew the name Marco D'Angelo sounded familiar, and when he finally remembered where he had heard it, his whole body went cold. He was the rumored Mafia boss people whispered about in the news. Later that evening, Anna finished her shift quietly. As she walked home, she kept thinking about Marco's words. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. She didn't know who he really was, but she was sure of one thing. He wasn't just a regular customer. And somehow, deep down, she knew her life had just changed forever. The next few days passed quietly, but the restaurant didn't feel the same. Everyone worked more carefully, especially Mr. Collins. He no longer shouted or threw things when he got angry. He spoke politely and even said please sometimes. The workers noticed the sudden change, but didn't ask why. Anna knew it was because of Marco D'Angelo. Ever since that night, Mr. Collins hadn't dared to raise his voice at her again. One afternoon, Anna was cleaning a table near the window when a small black car stopped outside. Her heart skipped for a moment when she saw who stepped out. It was Marco again, dressed in a dark grey suit, looking calm as always. Two men followed him as usual, but this time they didn't sit with him. They waited by the door while Marco walked in alone. Everyone turned to look, but quickly went back to work, pretending not to stare. Anna walked to his table nervously. "Good afternoon, sir," she said softly. "Welcome back," Marco gave a small smile. "Good afternoon, Anna," he said, calling her by name for the first time. "How's your mother?" Anna blinked, surprised that he remembered. "She's doing better, sir," she said. "I sent her some money for her medicine." Marco nodded. "Good," he said. "You're a good daughter." His calm tone made her smile shyly. Mr. Collins saw them talking and felt uneasy again. He wanted to stay away, but curiosity pulled him closer. Marco noticed him standing by the counter. "Mr. Collins," Marco said. "Come here." The manager forced a smile and walked over. "Yes, sir," he said nervously. Marco looked around. "I see this place still standing. That's good. You're keeping things in order." Mr. Collins nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Everything's going well." Marco's lips curved slightly. "Make sure it stays that way." After Marco ordered his meal, Anna went to the kitchen to give the chef the order. The moment she left, Marco looked at Mr. Collins and said in a quiet voice, "You know, I've been thinking about buying this restaurant." Mr. Collins froze. "Buy it," he repeated, trying to sound calm. "Yes," Marco said. "It has potential. But it needs a better hand to run it." Mr. Collins felt his throat tighten. "Oh, of course, sir," he said. Unsure what else to say, Marco looked at him directly. "I'm sure you'll make the right decision when the time comes," he said. The meaning behind those words was clear. When Anna returned with his food, the tension had filled the air again. She didn't understand what was going on between the two men, but she could feel it. Marco's face looked calm, but his eyes stayed fixed on Mr. Collins. When he finished eating, he stood up, left some money on the table, and said to Anna, "If you ever need help, call this number." He handed her a small card. "Don't lose it," she nodded, confused but grateful, and slipped the card into her apron pocket. As soon as Marco left, Mr. Collins sat down heavily in a chair. His hands were shaking again. The other workers kept asking what was wrong, but he didn't answer. Deep inside, he knew that he had just crossed paths with someone he couldn't escape. And for Anna, life had just taken another unexpected turn, one that would soon pull her into Marco D'Angelo's world completely. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Marco D'Angelo and the strange way he spoke to her. Why would a man like him care about a simple waitress? She looked at the small card he had given her. It had only a name and a phone number, no address, no company name, nothing else. She placed it inside her drawer and told herself she would never use it. But deep inside, she felt it might be important someday. The next morning, the restaurant was quieter than usual. Mr. Collins had come in early and stayed locked in his office. Everyone wondered what was happening. When Anna went in to deliver the morning sales report, she saw him on the phone, speaking nervously. "Yes, sir, I understand," he said. His face was pale. When he noticed Anna standing by the door, he quickly ended the call and forced a smile. "Leave the report there," he said coldly. She nodded and left without asking questions. By noon, a group of men in suits came into the restaurant. They didn't look like regular customers. They sat at different tables, but their eyes kept scanning the room. The other workers whispered to each other, wondering who they were. Anna didn't recognize them, but something about their calm, serious faces made her uneasy. One of them caught her eye and nodded slightly, as if to say she had nothing to fear. A few minutes later, Marco walked in. The room went silent again, just like before. He sat down at his usual corner table, and the men in suits straightened in their seats. Mr. Collins came out of his office, trying to smile. "Good afternoon, sir," he said. Marco didn't look up. "Sit," he said simply. Mr. Collins obeyed, sitting across from him, his hands trembling slightly. Anna stood nearby, unsure if she should stay or leave. Marco looked around the restaurant before speaking. "You've had a good run here, Mr. Collins," he said calmly. "But I've decided to make things official." Mr. Collins blinked. "Official, sir?" Marco nodded. "This restaurant now belongs to me. I bought it this morning." The room went silent. Anna gasped softly, covering her mouth. Mr. Collins's face turned red. You can't just," he started. But Marco raised his hand, and he stopped talking immediately. "You signed the papers, didn't you?" Marco asked. "You agreed." Mr. Collins's shoulders dropped. He had no choice. The men around the room were watching, and he knew exactly who they worked for. "Yes, sir," he said weakly. "Good," Marco said. "You'll still have a job here, but not as a manager. From now on, you'll clean tables." Everyone in the restaurant stared in shock. Mr. Collins wanted to protest, but one look at Marco's eyes told him not to. "Understood," he whispered. Marco turned to Anna. "You," he said, his tone soft again. "You'll be the new floor supervisor. I trust you'll do well." Anna froze, unable to believe what she had just heard. "Me, sir?" she asked. Marco nodded once. "You've earned it." The other workers smiled secretly. They all knew she deserved it. For the first time, Anna felt proud of herself. She didn't understand why this powerful man was helping her, but she was grateful. As Marco stood to leave, he said quietly, "Remember, Anna, when someone shows kindness, protect it. Not everyone gets a second chance." Then he walked out, leaving behind a stunned restaurant and a young woman whose life had just changed completely. The next day felt like a dream for Anna. Everyone at the restaurant treated her differently. The same workers who used to ignore her now listened when she spoke. Even Mr. Collins, now wearing a plain cleaning apron, stayed quiet whenever she walked by. It felt strange. She wasn't used to giving orders or checking other people's work, but she tried her best. Every time she doubted herself, she remembered Marco's words, "You've earned it." By afternoon, business was running smoothly. Customers came in, and Anna made sure everything looked perfect. She wanted to prove that she could handle the new position. While checking a table near the window, she noticed a small black car stop outside again. Her heart jumped. She already knew who it was. Marco D'Angelo stepped out, calm as always, but this time he was alone. No guards, no suits following him. He walked in quietly, and everyone immediately straightened up. "Good afternoon, sir," Anna said, smiling nervously. "Everything's fine today," Marco nodded. "Better than before," he said. "You're doing a good job." She smiled shyly. "Thank you, sir." He looked around. "I like what I see. Clean tables, happy customers. That's what I wanted." He sat down, and Anna brought him water. This time, she didn't tremble like before. She was still nervous, but she felt a little braver. Mr. Collins avoided looking at them. He stayed near the kitchen, wiping the counter that was already clean. Marco noticed, but said nothing. After a while, Marco asked Anna, "Do you enjoy your work now?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. It's different now. People listen. It feels nice." Marco smiled slightly. "Good. You should always have peace where you work." His calm tone made her relax even more. For a moment, she almost forgot who he really was. As Anna turned to serve another customer, two men walked into the restaurant. They didn't look friendly. They weren't Marco's usual guards. They looked rough and impatient. One of them spoke loudly, "We're looking for Marco D'Angelo." Everyone went silent. Mr. Collins's eyes widened, and Anna froze in place. Marco stayed seated, slowly taking a sip of his drink. "You found me," he said quietly. The two men exchanged looks, clearly nervous now that they stood before him. "We just want to talk," one of them said quickly. Marco looked at them calmly. "Then talk," he said. But his tone carried warning. Anna could feel the tension spreading through the air again. Mr. Collins moved closer to the kitchen, ready to hide if things got bad. One of the men leaned forward. Our boss wants to remind you that this city isn't yours. Marco raised an eyebrow. Then he should have told me himself, he said. The man hesitated, then looked toward the door, unsure what to do next. At that moment, two of Marco's guards appeared outside the restaurant doors, almost like they had known this would happen. The two strangers stepped back quickly, their voices shaky. "We'll be in touch," one of them said. And they left. Marco didn't move until they were gone. Then he looked at Anna and said softly, "I'm sorry for the scene. Sometimes the world outside doesn't stay quiet." Anna nodded slowly. "It's okay, sir," she said. But in her heart, she realized something new. Marco wasn't just a kind man. He was someone powerful, and dangerous too. That night, when the restaurant closed, Anna sat alone at a table thinking about everything. She had started this job just hoping to survive. Now she was caught between fear and gratitude toward a man everyone respected and feared at the same time. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing: Marco D'Angelo wasn't done changing her life. The next morning, the restaurant felt tense again. Everyone was talking quietly about the two men who had come in the day before. Some said they were from another gang. Others said they worked for someone trying to take over the city. Anna didn't know what to believe. She just wanted to do her job and stay out of trouble. But she could feel something heavy in the air, like danger was getting closer. Mr. Collins kept his head down as he cleaned tables. He still couldn't believe how fast everything had changed. The place he used to run was now under the control of a man people only whispered about. He wanted to quit, but fear kept him there. When Anna came near, he forced a small smile. "Morning, Miss Anna," he said politely. She nodded and smiled back. It felt strange to have her former boss talk to her with respect, but she didn't brag or act proud. She just wanted peace. Around noon, Marco's car arrived again. Anna's heart jumped when she saw it. This time, he wasn't alone. A woman was with him. She was tall, wearing dark glasses and a long black dress. Everyone turned to look as they entered. Marco walked in first, his usual calm face hiding every emotion. The woman followed quietly. They sat together at his usual corner table. Anna walked over carefully and said, "Good afternoon, sir." Marco nodded. "Good afternoon, Anna. This is my sister, Isabella." Anna smiled nervously. "Welcome, ma'am," she said softly. Isabella smiled back. "Thank you, dear," she said. Her voice was calm, kind, but there was something sharp about her eyes, the kind of look that noticed everything. Marco ordered for both of them, 2 plates of pasta and water, he said. Anna nodded and hurried off to the kitchen. Isabella watched her walk away and then looked at her brother. "She's the girl you helped?" she asked quietly. Marco nodded. "Yes, she's different, honest. I like that." When Anna returned with their food, Isabella spoke kindly to her. "You remind me of myself when I was your age," she said with a small smile. "Quiet, hardworking, and always scared to make a mistake." Anna blushed a little. "Thank you, Mum," she said. Marco listened quietly, watching both of them. He seemed calm, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept glancing toward the door, like he was expecting someone. Anna noticed, but didn't ask. Halfway through their meal, 2 black cars stopped outside. Marco saw them through the window and frowned slightly. Isabella noticed it too. "They're here," she said under her breath. Anna followed their gaze and felt her chest tighten. The same 2 men from yesterday walked in, but this time they weren't alone. 3 more men followed behind them. The restaurant went completely silent. Marco stood up slowly. "Isabella, stay seated," he said calmly. She didn't move.